Welcome everyone to the semi-finals of the FIDE World Blitz Championship 2025. On your screen are two of the greatest players from the generation. Magnus Carlsen on the right and Fabiano Caruana on the left. In their normal tournament, that was in the round robin segment, Magnus lost to Fabi, the famous rook blunder where Magnus jumped from his chair. And now in the semi-finals, it's the 4-game match that they are playing. The first 2 games have ended in draws. This is the 3rd game that they are playing against each other. Magnus has the black pieces, Fabi is white, and this one is going to be a very, very exciting game. The players are ready. The arbiter says Fabi opens with e4, e5, pawn to d3. Now look at Magnus's expression there. He was like, okay, interesting. Fabi did play the same opening on the previous day against Abhimanyu Puranik and won his game. Knight to c3. And now Magnus can bring his knight out. It's a bit weird to, block your bishop on f1. He goes bishop to c5. Knight comes to f3. And now if you play knight f6, there's knight e5 and d4. So Magnus very quickly plays d6, but now he loses his bishop here. So Fabi has things worked out. He takes on c5, pawn takes, and look at this structure. Magnus has dark square control, but he's lost the bishop pair. Pawn to c3, taking into control the d4 square. Knight comes to e7, and now bishop comes out to e2. Black castles, white castles as well, and pawn comes forward to b6. We have bishop e3, and black hits forward with f5. If you take, knight takes f5, he takes it, otherwise the pawn was coming ahead to f4. And structurally, white has a very nice position now because the e5 pawn is isolated, the e4 square is an outpost, knight takes f5 taken, and Fabi can now just go knight d2 to e4 and will have a very cool position to play. But does he want to give up this bishop is the question. He says it's fine. It's fine. You can take it, Magnus, if you want to. Magnus brings his bishop out here. And now bishop f3, hitting the knight on c6. Very complex positional struggle here. That is for sure. And now Magnus goes queen to d7. And do we want to go knight to c4 to hit the e5 pawn? He first defends the d3 pawn with queen e2. And I think a very logical move is to bring the rook into the center of the board. But maybe it'll get hit by the bishop on g5. So he goes bd5, offering a trade of bishops. Fabi places the bishop on a very nice square because if you take, I could even take back with the pawn. So h6, a useful move. As we saw in many lines, the bishop was coming to g5. It has been stopped. So you see a battle between two so competent players, not giving an inch to each other, just trying to maneuver themselves. And these are the games which Magnus and Fabi would be enjoying themselves because they need to somehow outwit their opponent. f3, strengthening the bishop in the center. And now Magnus brings his rook. He's eyeing down the d file, the d3 pawn, the d2 knight. And for white, the knight can jump to c4. But what are the other plans? Maybe transfer the bishop from f2 to g3 to put more pressure on e5. Bring the rook to e1. That's one idea. But you also have to be a bit worried about this pawn here. He goes rook f d1. Maybe he wants to play knight f1 to g3. a4. Oof. These are Magnus-like moves. Gaining space. Bishop f2. Fabi goes with this idea of rerouting his bishop. Knight to e7. Magnus is rerouting his knight from g6 to f4. Woo. Amazing play. And now maybe bg3 makes sense. But he goes knight c4. And knight to g6 just in time to defend this. g3, stopping knight f4, but this does weaken the structure a bit. And queen f7, I love this move. Opening up the rook, putting pressure here. Too many things happening. Also, the c4 knight has to be cared for. And time is ticking down for Fabi. He's at 128. He was ahead on the clock than Magnus. Rook f1. That's not a happy move that you make. You had played your rook to d1. Now bringing it back to f1. But somehow Magnus would like Fabi to take here. And Fabi would like Magnus to take on e4, which will strengthen his structure. So that's a bit of a cold war there. But knight d6 could help to just put more pressure here and here. He did it. He does it. Threat now. Take on c4. Takes and bishop c4. That's a simple but quite a big threat. He takes on g6. Queen takes. And now takes the pawn on e5. Fabi is like, thank you Magnus for the free pawn. But what an understanding by Magnus. He quickly plays queen e6. And he says this is a pin. Rook e1. And now guys, it's time for tactics it seems. This knight can move now because the queen is defended. But look at this. Bishop f3. If you take with the queen, you lose the queen. Bishop f3, knight f3. I take the queen. Oh, he takes it. Knight takes. Rook takes. Rook f3. And now Fabi goes bishop to e3. So maybe this entire sequence wasn't the best because the position has once again equalized. White is fine. I thought it was amazing tactics, but now White's position is fine. d4 could come in at any point. Takes. King takes. And this move a4 could prove in handy at some point to push a3. Will Magnus do it? No, first the king comes in. King f7. And maybe Fabi can already think about a3 there. No, he goes g4. He's expanding on the king side. And Magnus, full board vision is needed to find a move like a3 because, oh my god, he's going for it. He's bringing his hand near the a pawn. That is insane. He finds it. And you don't want to play b3 because this pawn on a3 is such a thorn in the position. But actually, it's not a bad idea. b3, knight b5, c4 could be possible. Too many things to think about here for Fabi. He takes the pawn. He's like, let me take it. Knight jumps in, attacks here and here. Pawn to c4, takes the a3 pawn. Rook d2, defending this. Knight jumps in, attacking the rook. Man, Magnus's knight is going crazy. Now, how do you defend this pawn? Rook d1 seems logical, but then knight c3 attacking here on a2. He comes back. Knight to c3, he goes up. The knight now cannot really do something to win material, but the king can come in. That's the thing about Magnus. He always finds his ways. d4, why not just push it here? I think that's a good move. Pawn to d4. And 22 seconds for Magnus, 30 for Fabi. d3 square is a bit soft. He goes king e1. And now the rook jumps in, attacking the a2 pawn. He goes with bishop to f4, c6 played. And now the plan is b5, b4. Somehow everything is magically coming together, attacking b6. And Magnus, letting his time go down to 15 seconds, plays b5. Take. And now bishop comes back to d2, attacking the knight. If you move the knight, b5 pawn is hanging, so b4. Ooh, but now you can go into a king and pawn endgame. I mean, d4 is actually the best move to, but he takes. Not king and pawn, rook and pawn endgame. And takes, but it's equal pawns. King d5, defending this pawn, attacking here. Can you believe it? Magnus assessed this correctly, that the rook endgame is winning for him. What a wizard he is on the board. Maestro. Rook h2, attacking here. Rook a3. And he goes king d4. He goes to a7 to attack g7, push. Rook d7 check, king e3, threatening a checkmate. Moves the king away, but can we take the pawn? He takes it. Pawn up, king g2. Now attacking another pawn on g4. Magnus knows he's got this. King g3, rook h1, brings his rook out. Wants to attack this pawn on d1. Rook d5, attacking this. Check. This very important check. And now rook c1 defending his pawn. King comes back. Rook to c3. Incredible. I think he could even run away like this. Try to defend here and take. Fabi with 3 seconds plays rook d6. Takes the pawn. Takes on h6. And now the c pawn is an absolute monster. King d2. He brings the king in, but the pawn is too strong. And Magnus there holding his nerves, pushes the pawn forward. And now the threat is king b2, rook b3. So king comes forward. And rook to c3 played. He stops the king from coming out. Rook c4. King comes up. King d2. Check. King c3 and the pawn is queening. Magnus Carlsen wins. And he now leads the match 2-1. What an incredible game this was. Fabi played absolutely brilliant chess. He was having such great ideas. There was so much strategic maneuvering happening. But in the end, Magnus sacks a pawn, plays the endgame and wins it brilliantly. That's